So uh, the first topic of the today's lecture is persons not liable for GST registration. So when you do for a GST registration, it is compulsory, mandatory for many of the cases, but few more cases the GST registration is not compulsory for those particular set of persons. So let me see which are the different kind of person for whom the GST registration is not compulsory. The persons not liable for GST registration, there are three categories of the persons which do not require GST registration in India. So these three categories are not required to do these three categories of the persons, they don't have to do a registration of GST in India, even if they are falling under the mandatory registration. Even if they fall under certain mandatory registration also, these people, they don't have to do the registration under GST, right? So the persons not liable for GST registration are like exclusive suppliers. If he is an exclusive supplier only, right, he is not at all dealing in some other thing, only he is supplying the goods, such kind of persons, they don't have to do the GST registration. Agriculturist, any person who is involved in agriculture and allied activities, even those kind of persons, they are not liable for GST registration. Then notified by government, some business, they are notified by the government has notified that they can do GST registration. So such kind of people are also they are also that they can't like they are also not liable for GST registration. We'll see one by one. The first, as I have told you, is supply exempted exclusively. The supply itself has been exempted exclusively. So any person making a supply of exempted or non-taxable goods or services, then he shall not be required to take the GST registration, right? There are some commodities which are exempted from GST, which are not taxable under GST. So if you're dealing in the supply of those kind of goods, then because of your goods are exempted and not taxable, so exclusively if you're doing in such goods and services, means you don't have to do a registration under GST. You are not required to do a registration under GST. Further exemption shall remain even if the person is supplying interstate supplies, right? Even if you are doing interstate supply also, this exemption will be remaining, right? Like you supply some kind of goods which are exempted or which is not taxable, not only in Karnataka but also in some other states like Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, or some other states you are supplying the goods. There also this exemption will be applicable. That means you don't have to do registration for the supply of exempted exclusively goods or services, right? These are already exempted, so you don't have to do a registration under GST for those goods and services. The second type is agriculturist. So if any person is engaged in agriculture activities, then GST registration shall not be required. So he don't have to do a GST registration, because agriculture, as we know, it is totally exempted. Whatever income you do earn on agriculture, it is totally exempted in India. So if you do any agriculture activities and allied activities, then GST registration shall not be required on that particular things. GST registration not be required. Further, exemption shall remain even if the person is supplying interstate supplies. Even if you are doing agriculture activities or supplying the goods related to your agriculture activities to some other interstates, right, some other states, there also this exemption will be applicable. That means you are here also, you don't have to do a registration. So second person is agriculturist. Third is notified by the government. The government may notify the category of taxpayers who do not require the GST registration, right? The government from time to time, they will notify, they will find out certain businessmen, certain taxpayers who do not require to do a registration under GST. On those category has been notified, any person whose service is under reserve charges is not liable for GST registration. Okay, the government every year they will give some list of the business. Though those list of business, if anybody is doing those kind of business which is notified by the government, which is approved by the government, if anybody is doing such kind of business, then that person don't have to do a registration under GSTs because it is notified by the government. So these are the three persons who are not required to do the registration under GST. Those are exclusively suppliers, agriculturist, and notified by the government. This class, this is the second part. So GST registration procedure, we are going to see about the step. What are the different steps of GST registration procedures? So the first step is gathering all the documents. We need to gather all the documents. The first step for GST registration is to gather all the documents in a scan form in your computer. Following is the list of basic documents required. To do registration of our GST of our business, we need to have these all documents like PAN card of the firm, registration document, certificate we can call for it, copy of cancelled check, one of the copy of one check cancelled, passport size photo, authorization letter, address proof like electricity bill. So these are the minimum document required for the registration of your GST, like PAN card, registration documents, copy of cancelled check, passport size photos, authorization letters, and address proof like electricity bill. Then the second procedure is create TRN and login. Okay. Now this TRN is, they will give you a temporary registration number. It is not a permanent one, a temporary registration number and a login to your ID. Right, you can log into the GST portal. For login purpose, they will give you a temporary registration number. The second step is to visit to the gst.government.in. Right, this is a website we need to visit and click on new user registration, and then after that a TRN number is generated. Right, a temporary registration number is generated, based upon which you can create the login and proceed. So based on that particular thing, we can log into that particular website and then we have to proceed. While creating the login, make sure you enter a valid mobile number and email. Right, whenever we are creating a login, the first thing is that we need to enter our valid mobile number and email, because we will get an OTP for the registration authentication. The GST department will send us the OTP on your mobile number as well as our email ID, and if the OTP matches, then we can go on to the third step. Right, third step, that is called as prepare the GST registration. That is number one. The third step is to prepare the form GST registration number one online. After logging into your system, make sure you fill all the details properly and correctly to avoid wrong registration later on. Uploading all the legitimate documents online to avoid rejection of the GST registration. So whatever documents we saw in the first point, whatever we collected it, now we need to upload here in the third form, that is GST registration number one. All the documents, whatever are there, it has to be properly uploaded. Whatever details are there, we need to fill those all details properly, because if any mistake happens, it will be again difficult for us to change that mistake or alter that mistake. Once the application is prepared, file the same and generate the ARN number. Right, if all the application whatever you made and whatever you typed and you scanned and uploaded, if everything is correct, you just need to file the same, means you need to generate, and then finally ARN number you will get, that is acknowledgement receipt number we are going to get. Right, once you get acknowledgement receipt number, the next step the will go, that is once the ERN number is generated, that acknowledgement receipt number, the application is transferred to the government department. Whatever details you have entered, like your name of the business, right? Your all documents are there, your contact number is there, mail is there, everything is being there in that form and sent to the government department. Thereafter, the application is being verified by the GST officer. The GST officer, he will verify all the details and then he will try to match it. He will try to find the authentication of the document. If any discrepancy is found, like if any uh, correctness is not there, if he is not satisfied with your documents, the GST officer, then the application is sent back to correct the errors. They will not directly reject the application. What they do is, you will get up again mail that these are the things which are not correct, these are the things which need to be changed. So the officer will send you a mail. Once the error are corrected, the application is refiled to the tax department. So once all errors you have corrected and finally you think that now the application is perfect and now I can again send to the GST department. So after doing all amendments and changes and doing corrections, again send back the application to the GST or tax department. Then the next fifth step is registration granted or rejected. This is the fifth step. If the clarification filed is incorrect, so whatever clarification they asked you or whatever changes they have asked you, if that is whatever you filed that is incorrect, then the application is rejected. The GST officer, what he will do? He will reject your application. He has a full authority to reject your application. Further, if the clarification is accepted, he asked you for some clarification and he was satisfied, he accepted your clarification. In that case, the GST registration is granted by the authority. The authority, they will grant you GST registration. The registration details are sent by the department to the registered email ID to the taxpayer. So once you are being registered as the registered GST taxpayer, the registration detail about your own organization or your own firm, it will be sent to your email ID, right? The taxpayer's email ID. The taxpayer need to log in into the system using the credentials. Now, whatever credentials are given, like user ID, password, whatever things are there, go to the GST website, log in, and then you can log in and see about your status. Right now, registration is granted. You can log in and see your status. Now, last step under GST is download the registration certificate. Finally, what we need to do is we need to download the registration certificate. Once the registration GST registration is granted, that taxpayer can download the registration certificate in form like GST registration number 6. All the activity related to GST can be tracked online in your GST account. Like you can see all your transaction, whatever you are doing, you can track in your account. Once the GST registration is granted, you need to issue tax invoice for each supply made for goods and services or both. Like once you get a GST registration number, on all your invoices, means on all your bills, right? Whatever invoice you are giving to the customers, on every invoice there should be a GST number, right? There should be a GST number, whatever number is given, that registration number should be written on all the invoices, because it will be easy for the government also to trace your invoices, right? So this is the